It's the Brian and Flounder Show. The Brian and Flounder Show. Two guys, bachelors, going to school, living in an apartment together with wacky neighbors, and a really pretty middle-aged lady as the landlord who's got a crush on Flounder, but Flounder's still exploring his sexuality. Every other week is a very special episode where we learn that Flounder has a dark side. But his dark side is just taped on in reality. Flounder's a good little fish, she's yellow, and has a friend who's a mermaid. Only not anymore, 'cause she's got legs, so he never sees her. And besides, he probably only has a lifespan of about 2.5 years, and she'll live for another 40. It's a sad ending to The Little Mermaid, 'cause Ariel's gonna live for a while, and he'll be dead soon. Part of the circle of life, which ties into The Lion King. Bye, Flounder.
Bye, Brian.
I do a good Flounder. All the gang is here, too. I'm under an umbrella, get out of the harsh sunlight, and I clap my hands. The sound went up there and back here and in here, and ow. Hi, you specifically. This video, every week, I do 3 or 4 of these, and you guys think it's for all of you. But it isn't. It's just for you. You know that, right? Let me get framed better in the shot here. See if I can pick this little thing here off the wall. No, I can't. Okay, that's going to stay there. Hey, guys. This is your Sunday Coffee with Brian. The one that, at least for a week or so now, has become the expanded edition. Can't guarantee it's going to be that today, but I'm going to do my usual reaching off camera. I have the second favorite mug, the Mickey, going today. I don't know what I'm drinking. Starbucks something. Starbucks Pike's Place blend. I shaved for you guys. When I got up this morning, there was all the scruff, the quarantine scruffs. I framed out the beard, which for me is weird because, again, I'm white here, but still dark there. And the top, only a teeny bit of gray here. I know I said this in the last video, but when do I get to be a silver fox? I don't know. Let's get this out of the way right at the top. Let's welcome the new Patreons. I've been lax in that. I forget to do it. Let's welcome Misty Eckler. Hi, Misty. Let's welcome Stephen Kuhn, who's at top. Hello, Stephen Kuhn, who's at top. Hello, Nathaniel Wilson. Hello, Rick Snyder, another top. Rick Snyder. Hello, Dan McGregor. And I think we're caught up after that. Yeah, then Jen Mundy, right? Yeah, we did Jen Mundy. Okay, but we didn't. You know what I mean. Maybe we didn't. Hi, Jen Mundy. I haven't done a video since Thursday, right? Thursday was the Does It Juggle. No, I did a Coffee with Brian on Friday. It's all blending together. So let's just say hi to a few more. I'll probably double team a few of them here. That came out weird again. Robin Timmons, hello. And Sam Owens, hello. There, I've caught up with all the new Patreons. What else should we do? A little housekeeping. Let's see how Does It Juggle is doing. The new one, episode 3. The options are Brick, Little Banjo, the Pac-Man game, which none of you like, a roll of toilet paper, a 5-pound weight, and a water balloon. So far, it's Brick, Little Banjo, and a water balloon. Let's see who's controlling the conversation over here. Ooh, you discover that you can vote numerous times. So I'm going to leave it like that for now, but I can change that for future reference. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen if it was just chaos. If it was Lord of the freaking Flies. What did I want to start talking with you guys about? I wanted to talk to you about improvisation. People say improv, they mean improvisation. Spell check doesn't understand the word improv. To this day, when I have to write reviews or little commentaries on my show and little blurbs from time to time, I try to throw the word improv in there to kind of describe my style. Spell check doesn't like it. It makes it into the word improve. That's okay. So a brief history of my improve background. I started improving right out of the womb. No, I started doing improv, I guess like a lot of people did, in high school drama. You know, the drama teacher said, okay, we're doing a little bit of improvisation today. Brian, get up there with Karen and do a little scene. And it's going to be based on blah-bitty-blah. And then we would go go-bitty-go, but in English. And that was great. And right off the top, let me just start by saying, and I don't want you guys to take this as an egotistical thing because it is not meant as such. You know what's bothering me? I'm sorry. You guys don't care about this, but I always put the monitor of my head right below my camera line. So if I have this weird urge to look at my face, I'm still kind of looking at the camera. There we go. Much better. Don't think it's an ego thing. It's not. It's just a professional thing. It's a plumber can say he's a good plumber. A doctor can say he's a good doctor. Nobody bats an eye. But as soon as a performer says, hey, I'm good, or I do this well, or I was always good at. Egotist. You narcissistic jerk, you. And sure, I'm both of those things. But this is not that. It was never hard for me doing improv. It was never something that I really struggled with. It came naturally. And here's the deal. Well, hang on. Let's bury that lead. I'll get to that in a second because that's going to come around again. Remember that quote. So we did it a little bit in high school. And then after that, my next real experience was my first year working at the Renaissance Fair, the Maryland Renaissance Fair, 1985. That's right, kids. Before the internet. That's right. Back when if you wanted to interact with like a low K-list, super minor celebrity blue-collar entertainer, you had to go to your house like a real person and scale their wall and deal with their guard dogs, and chloroform the guard like a real person had to. Not now when you guys can just, a couple days, suddenly there's my big dumb face. No internet. Video games were just barely getting beyond. I think the first NES system was out. There was 5 bits of processing. What else can I talk about the 80s? Well, you know about most of it. Bananarama was still a thing. And strangely, so was Aerosmith. Still. So 80s. The Maryland Renaissance Fair had just moved from its temporary location in a town called Crownsville. Temporary location, similar to the Renaissance Fairs. A lot of you fob from the West Coast know what I'm talking about, and from South Florida. Some fairs have permanent sites, some fairs have temporary sites. It's very common on the West Coast here where I live. I think almost all the fairs, except for maybe 1 or 2, are temporary sites. Whereas when I was exposed to the Renaissance Fair world working at it, everything was a permanent site. So I'd already been to the Maryland Renaissance Fair at its temp site. They moved it closer to Annapolis, where I lived, and to a town called Crownsville, where it still is today. Great name for a Renaissance Fair town. Crownsville. Get it? Because a king or a queen wears a crown. Tee-hee. Tee-hee. I'm in a mood. It's going to be a good one. You're going to want to erase stuff on your planner because Brian's doing a good coffee with Brian. Sometimes they're not good. I know. That worst episode ever. That one. You know the one before. You know, go back. It's there. I'll wait. Pause me in a fun frame though. Oh, and you're back? Yeah. See, that's what I was talking about. Whenever I put these videos up on YouTube, you always have to choose the thumbnail. And I guess you can scrub through the video and choose what you want or put up your own little place card. I just pick one of the ones that the algorithm picks. And it's not always a good one. Sometimes it's like... That's why I always try to start the videos with a freeze frame. Hoping that YouTube figures out that maybe that's what he wants. Happy face, nice hand gesture. That's the thumbnail. Where was I? Huge digression day, by the way. Huge digression day. Renaissance Fair moved to Crownsville. I'm not sure if I gave you guys the history of my existence in this industry. Maybe I could tie it into this video. Did I already do that? Can I ask you guys that in a format where you cannot immediately respond to me and therefore asking you is pointless? Why, yes. Yes, I can, children who want to win the control of the chocolate factory. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. Should I do it again real quick? I want to talk about improv, not about my existence in the Ren Fair business. Okay, real quick. Ren Fair came closer to me. I just graduated high school. I was getting ready to go to art college that fall. And I figured, hey, Ren Fair, fun job. Me and some friends, we applied. We all got accepted, but I'm the only one that showed up to take the job. The job was to work games. And I met the guy that ran the games, who was also the director of the Renaissance Fair. And I said, "There's anything you need me to do?" Because I met him at the Ren Fair site. They're still building it, construction going on. He said, "No, no." And it was like, a month out. He says, "We're going to contact you guys again a week or so out when things are a little more built. We'll come on out. We'll all rehearse the games. We'll get our shtick down. We'll get costuming done." And I said, "Oh, okay. This is exciting. Is there anything I'd like to do something else to get into the spirit of it?" And he says, "Well, we have these rehearsals, but they're not really for you. They're for the street characters and the court actors. You're welcome to show up if you want." He gave me the time and place, and I showed up. Sat in the back because it was kind of just a dark room, and they were rehearsing like a little queen has dinner, or rather lunch, with all the historical figures: Robert Dudley, Lettice. How do you say her name? Lady Lettice? A lot of Ren Fair people know who I'm talking about. Very common Ren Fair character. Excuse me. Whenever I cough, it's the dragon. Let's put him behind me. He got juggled. And he saw me there when it was over, the director, and he says, "Oh, Brian, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Hey, you came." I'm like, "Yeah." And he had a little epiphany because he was planning something already, nothing to do with me. So he said, "You know what? I like that you showed up. That's cool. I have this other job that I may be developing. You might be okay for it, or good for it." He's a little more complimentary. I'm trying to be modest. And it was a street character job. It was a town crier job. The idea was he cut up the Ren Fair into like 4 zones, and each zone had a town crier whose job was to promote the various stage acts. Hear ye, on stage now. Although none of us really went with a classic way of doing that. We all riffed our own style. And but also to be his eyes and ears during the day. If an entertainment issue cropped up in that zone, come to the town crier, jot down. No smartphones, even if there were, we couldn't have them. Or the Renaissance Fair, for God's sakes. What's wrong with you people? And then we'd report back, and at the end of the day, there was always a meeting. How did things go? Very similar to a lot of Renaissance fairs now have stage managers, But the stage managers at most of the fairs that I do that have that, they walk around, walkie-talkie, collared shirt, earpiece, the fair's logo. They look like stage managers. We were in costume and in character. We were street characters first and stage managers second. Anyway, so there you go. That's how I got my first job at a Renaissance Fair, as a street character. So I went probably down in salary. Probably would have made more as a gamer, but that's okay. It was a fun experience. So that was the first improv experience, in a large scale, I should say. Now, Renaissance Fair street character improv experience, very different from stage comedy sports, theater sports type improv, like Whose Line Is It Anyway type improv. Because the fair opens, the cannon goes off, and you're on for 8 hours. Now, you can take breaks, of course, and you're encouraged to. I rarely did. I was just so excited to be out there having fun. And I was 18 at the time. 19? 18. I was young. Ooh, there's howling going on inside the house. I'm not sure if you can hear it. So it's to some it was scary. Like I said, to me, it kind of came natural. Not an ego thing. It made sense to me. It made sense. A little nervous the first couple times of being in my little silly costume, which looked horrible. We'll try to look for some archival footage of my very early costume. I know I talked about my tights the other day, but this predated that even. Horrible thing I slapped together. It was made out of, my mother had an Indian costume, a Native American costume that she wore for like a costume party, and we kind of harvested the vest and like a little skirt thing part of it, and I did wear tights, basic Danskin tights. So when I said that was my first time wearing tights at the previous video, that was a lie. I lied to you. I didn't lie to you. I just forgot about this. And some basic slipper type shoes. Those kind of they call them the China flats, made in China. The ones you wear at the dojo. They'll have you put those on at the karate places just to keep the floor without all your stanky feet on it. So I went and bought a pair of those. And that was a very standard Ren Fair look. And one of those basic, collar, white puffy shirts that you get at like the Scottish stores, which is where I got it, at the Scottish store downtown Annapolis. Had a Scottish store. Bought Scottish stuff there. Weird. Anyway, so did that job. Cannon goes off. Little pre-show stuff. So I was part of that too, of course, outside the front gate, interacting with the audience, getting the accent down, early days of the Renaissance Fair, just did a basic accent like that. Nothing fancy. It wasn't until the second year when my character became a wee bit of a village idiot. I'm not sure if I've done that voice for you. I'm not sure if I could do it anymore. Character started talking like this. Did a lot of sounds like that, a lot of clicking. I don't know why. At the end of sentence like that. A. A lot of that. Don't know where it came from. Just became a bit of a village idiot type character. And then did my job. There were 6 scheduled shows on the stage I was in charge of. Hawking them. You know that term from before too. Right this way on the stage right now, come see Pandemonium. That was the big act on my stage. 3 jugglers who had a big influence on me, actually. Great guys. The second year, they gave me a little gift. They gave me a mug that said, "Big boys don't cry." Had it custom made for me because they thought I was doing a good job. And that was nice. It felt good. These were like older guys. They all averaged 5 to 10 years older than me. Probably not. They probably were, looking back, only 4 years older than me. But in my mind, they were in their mid to upper 30s, and I was 18. Although in reality, they were probably on their mid-20s. Okay, so 6, 7 years older than me. Digression. Great guys all did a great 3-man comedy, juggling act, unicycles, juggling, the standard kind of stuff that jugglers can put together when they have basic passing skills. And I learned a lot from that. The idea that once you could pass, and you found another juggler who could pass, meaning pass clubs back and forth. Everyone can pass. It's a fart joke. Very proud of it. So they were the act. There's another act on the stage. Puke and Snot was on the stage, a copy of Puke and Snot, which was a Ren Fair famous act back in the day, and they franchised out. And like another act was on the stage. I think Sac Theater. I'm going. These are really old Ren Fair references for you folks. And I promoted them. Next on stage, the comedy of Sac Theater. Right, this, and I learned the shows and I watched them, so I got to go. Okay, that's what they do. This is a juggling act. This is a sword fighting act. That's like a comedy audience participation act. And I learned, and I got good at it. And I riffed, and I came up with some funny stuff. It wasn't just come see the show for me. I'd have 2 buddies, other street character buddies, would carry me around by armpits and knees, and I'd stick an arrow under my armpit. It's like, oh, and they'd carry me up to a family, and I'd say, please. And they'd say, oh, my friend's dying. He has one last request, and I'd grab them and, please, go see the show before I die. And that was a lot of fun. So developing improv skills, not stage improv. Unless you want to do the whole world's a stage kind of thing, and the whole fair's a stage. Got to know all the other characters, what their stations were, basic establishing theatrical improv rules and stuff of, okay, high status character, low status character, angry character, happy character, dumb character, smart character. The first year it was just getting through it. I was okay. I was fine being Whitney. I knew the character's names. Hello. I wasn't really a character yet. It wasn't until the second year where I became a little more of that character. And the second year came around, and the improv got a little more interesting because my character became a little, like I said, I didn't call it a village idiot. I think I made a joke about it's the village intellectual, the village stand-up, the village. I didn't like the word village idiot because I didn't think of the character as smart. He just kind of saw things different. If you know the play, The Foreigner by Larry Shue, it's a character named Ellard. Which I auditioned for in college and didn't get it. So mad. I'm fine. But I got a good compliment from the director, and I am digressing, but it's going to make a point here. I'm comparing the character Ellard to my character of Brune at the Renaissance Fair. The character of Ellard, all the other guys that auditioned for him just made him dumb. He sounded like a bumpkin. And when I did it, I just made him sound like confused by the world. Not dumb. Confused by the world. Think more Forrest Gump. Yeah, he has a low IQ, but he takes you at your word, and he expects the world to behave in this reasonable way, and is shocked and dumbfounded when it doesn't. To him, waving at Lieutenant Dan on the dock, and he realizes he wants to get over to him even though he's on his boat, it makes perfect sense to him just to get off the damn boat, make a beeline for it. Dumb move? Brilliant move. Forrest Gump move. That's kind of what Brune was. I was called Brune, by the way, from the beginning, and I've already given the story on where that came from. But then that's the evolution of that character, Brune, which I maintained for the next like 4 years of my Ren Fair career. And that's a longer story. And right now we're just supposed to be talking about improv. So the second year I was more of a character. So I realized once I have more of a character, I could improv and the status was established. If I'm using that dumb guy, perceived dumb guy, who probably really isn't, and talk to a high status guy, I can have fun with it. I can be the buffoon to his high status character. And a couple of the great actors, there were some great ones. There was a guy that was the Spanish ambassador, and he got it. He was a very good improv actor, and he got that his character was supposed to be something you weren't supposed to like. And one thing that's great about improv, and you'll learn it if you ever do it, is when 2 actors on stage, 3 or 4 actors on stage, but we just start with 2, get the game. You'll often hear the phrase game referred to in improv. And it doesn't just mean the games like freeze tag, Shakespeare, replay. These are classic improv games, they're called, created by Viola Spolin, Keith Johnston, and all that. I'm dropping a lot of improv words here. I'm doing a lot of name dropping. And they're called theater games and stuff, and theatrical games. It was a way of teaching actors things, and they called them the games. This is using the word game a little differently. This is when 2 actors on stage get the inner joke of what's going on. I get it. I'm going to be angry because you ate the last piece of cake. You are going to be hoity-toity because, whatever. And we can play with that for a few minutes. Maybe the entire scene to play on that game. This guy playing the Spanish ambassador, he got the game. He was supposed to be a guy that you weren't supposed to like, and he spent a lot of time walking around being the evil guy. And I think he would seek me out because he knew with me he could still establish his character, but didn't have to be mean or evil. He just had to be dealing with Brune, dealing with the Forrest Gump type character that I was, dealing with a character who's going to just hear you, kind of go, oh. For some reason I always cocked my lip over there when I was the character. All right. No matter what you say, I'm going to find the ridiculousness of it because everything in life has a ridiculous quality to it in real life and in Renaissance acting life. And he would drop gems for me, knowing that I'd pick up on him. And it was really good. I forgot his name. I really wish I did. And he was older than me too. I was only the second year, 19 or 20, whatever the age I was, and he was 28, 30. And he was great. If he's out there, if he's watching this, you were great. I enjoyed playing with you a lot. And a lot of little bits came up, a lot of little regular bits I would do with various actors in the thing. Everybody had their little bits and their little interactions. It was really fun. They hired a lot of very talented people back in those days, and a lot of very good improv happened. Just based on the premise of we're in this village, the queen is visiting, I'm this character, and I'm going to go up to the customers and also interact with other actors. You had to make sure you had an audience, though. We learned about that. When me and that Spanish ambassador guy, there was always that 10-foot distance you wanted to keep. We were ahead of our time for quarantine, really. You want to keep that distance. You don't want to have your butts to the wind, as the director liked to say. You don't want to be a walking costume, which was kind of a bit of a slam against the people that just thought putting the costume on made them a character. Don't be a walking costume. Be an actual thing. So that was that level of improv. Just creating something in that environment, in that the world that was very, very open, not very structured, except that it did end at 6 o'clock or 7 when the cannon went off again and we all sang a little goodbye song. In that time, a buddy of mine named Mark Sullivan, we're still friends with today. Hi, Mark, if you see this. He moved up to Maryland from Florida, and he was an improv guy back in Florida. And he wanted to do improvisation, stage improv, as opposed to the Renaissance Fair type. And we hit it off. We were buddies. He was in an act that I really admired. He said, Brian, I'm going to look up a place to go perform weekly. Are you interested? I said, yes. He says, I found a place, let's go check it out. And it was Comedy Sports Washington, D.C., which at the time was performing in Vienna, Virginia. We both lived in Annapolis and had to drive to Vienna, Virginia, which is about, it could be an hour or so. But we would go on a weeknight. I think a Wednesday night we would go. And we were one of these people two of these guys that would just show up. every week. And we started getting to know the actors in the troupe. We started going out with them after the show. They'd go out for drinks and, hey, Brian, Mark, come along. Okay, all right, all right. Got to know a lot of people, made some friends back then that I still have to this day. It was awesome. We were eventually invited to kind of start coming to workshops with them, and little by little worked into the troupe. One of the main influencers of comedy sports is a guy named Dick Chudnow from Kentucky Fried Theater. If you're super duper comedy nerds, you know these names. Other members of Kentucky Fried Theater, of course, went on to create the Airplane movies, the Police Squad TV series. The Abrams brother. Oh God, I wish that name is leaving me. Unfortunately, look it up. And he came in for one of the workshops, and one of the ones that Mark and I were at. He gave us props. He was like, "Oh, these two guys are good. You should get them in the show." And the owner of the troupe back then, a guy named Pat Walsh, said, "Yeah." And so we started performing regularly. And now I'm doing stage improv with a lot of structure around it. So I went from Renaissance Fair, where you're pretty much thrown to the wolves opening day, and just to backtrack a bit, every year I did the fair after that, there was always at least one actor. I wouldn't say they were having a full-blown panic attack, but certainly very, very nervous. I remember seeing an actor backstage talking to the director, and I don't know what to do. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. Because they went through the rehearsal process, they got their costume, they got their character development, they did all the stuff that the Ren Fairs do to get you ready for it. But nothing gets you ready if you're not really ready for it. There's some wise words from me. Nothing will get you ready if you're not ready for it. Yeah. And so every year, at least one person would have a bit of a freak out the first weekend, like, what do I do? I never did. It felt natural. So now I'm doing more structured comedy sports. Now, that's a popular name. A lot of you know what it is. If you're from the Midwest, you know, of course, because it started in Madison, Wisconsin. Moved to Milwaukee. There's still a very strong comedy sports franchise there, I believe. And I did that for the next, 3 or 4 years as the troupe moved to a better location, eventually to a weekend gig, which is what we wanted, at a small little cramped place in Alexandria, Virginia. Still doing Ren Fairs at this point. At this point, I'm starting to do ones on the road. I'm still using Maryland as my base. I'm staying with my mom at the time, or my dad, I'm not sure what, when I was in town. And then I'd be out of town for 2 or 3 months at a time. But whenever I was in town, I was doing comedy sports shows. And there was a brief period where I was also part of a comedy troupe, a political satire troupe called Gross National Product. And they did parodies of, the president and everything at the time, which was George Bush Sr. And for a very brief time, I was doing those shows during when the Ren Fair was on. So I'd get up, go to the Ren Fair, work 8 hours doing my show. By then I was a stage act. Leave the Ren Fair, quickly put on my clothes. Not sure if I used the shower or not. Maybe I did, I don't know. Hopped in my car, hauled ass to Washington, D.C., to Georgetown, to a club called the Bayou, a famous rock and roll club, where Gross National Product performed Saturday at 8 or 7 or whenever it was. Did my bit for that, cleaned up, shook hands, hopped in the car, drove to Alexandria, about 20 minutes away, did the late show of Comedy Sports at 10:30, then went home, went to bed, got up Sunday, went back to the Ren Fair. I only did that for like 2 or 3 weeks before I realized, it ain't worth it. I had to do the Gross National Product because I was a character. That wasn't an improv show. I had to actually cover my bases and play the characters, do my lines for the various sketches. But I said, no more run into comedy sports after that. It's just not worth it. And that was a great existence. And I decided I wanted to do my own improv troupe. Comedy Sports was a franchise situation. You could start one if you wanted. I'm not sure how it works anymore, but it was back then. And a friend from the troupe named James Newport, who might be watching the video. Hi, James. He's a friend to this day as well. Wanted to start one too, and we decided let's just partner up. I'd already picked the city. I picked Orlando, Florida, just because growing up going to Florida a lot for vacations with my dad. I was a Disney nerd. I figured, why not live in Orlando? And so that's where I went down with James, and we started Comedy Sports Orlando. I'm kind of getting just the bullet points of it. I'm forgetting to go into the theatricality of it. I'll do it as we go here. In fact, I'll throw a little bit out there right now. The main difference of the structured comedy sports type improv. And if you've never seen a comedy sports or a theater sports or any kind of game themed Improv Olympic is a national chain. Although I guess they just closed the one here in L.A. Sadly. You're given a structure, one of those games I mentioned before, and just one of the easiest ones to explain is one called replay, and I think that's common in almost all iterations of competitive improv. There's a team of actors over here, a team of actors over there, and an MC who, in the comedy sports world, wears the stripes like a real ref does. Comedy sports basically took theater sports, which was the two teams and the MC ref, and just kind of juiced up the sports aspect of it. Instead of just performing on a stage, the stage was made out of AstroTurf with little white lines on it like it would be a football field. Instead of just wearing casual clothes like they did in the theater sports environment, we'd have like uniforms on, like baseball uniforms, or every teams over the years started evolving their own uniform looks. Basketball, tank top with a t-shirt underneath. In Orlando, we just wore kind of the standard baseball shirt, kind of undershirt, the colored sleeves, basically, is what I'm talking about. And that's comedy sports. And the ref, of course, has stripes. He described everything's, the players are introduced like athletes. Here they are. And we all had nicknames. That's where I kind of, my nickname of Bruno, which a few people to this day still will use. If you're standing around me and I'm in the right group of people, somebody's going to call me Bruno. That's where it came from. And I still, to this day, will refer to my comedy sports friends by their nicknames when I see them or talk to them online. And you came charging out when your name was called. You went to your sideline. You high-fived your team. We sung the national anthem. Seriously, got to be careful with that. Some people are uncomfortable if you make fun of that. So we didn't. And then the show started with a coin toss. Who goes first? A head-on-head game of theatrical stuff. A freeze tag or 185 or one of the other classic head-on-head improv games. And then the scenes, like I said. And the scenes would be like 4 minutes long. The ref would announce the scene. The game was either chosen by the team, or sometimes we throw it up into the audience, which we would call the fans, to choose, because they'd have a little program with a list of games on it. They'll pick their favorite one. The team had to play it. And you'd have like 4 minutes, roughly. Sometimes it would go longer if it was going well. Sometimes it would go very, very shorter if it wasn't going too well. The ref's job was kind of to keep the theatricality good, keep it fun, to kind of save the actors sometimes if things weren't going so great. And each game had a very strong structure. For example, I mentioned replays. It's a very, very common improv game. That's where you do a 1 minute scene. Very simple scene. Guy walks into a store, buys a donut, sees a lady, falls in love, romantic encounter. Cop comes in, arrests the guy for some reason. Who knows? I just pulled that out of my head. Let's say that was the 1 minute scene. The ref then says, okay, time. Now let's get three different ways to replay the scene. Hence replay. Genres, styles. You often got Shakespeare, opera, and Western. Okay, great. Which one are you going to do first, team? We're going to do Western first. Okay, Western. Same scene. Guy goes into a donut shop. And, well, this time, of course, he pushes open the cowboy doors. The saloon. They flap, flap, flap behind him. And he's playing the cowboy character. Howdy. You got donuts in this here saloon? Guy, of course, being the saloon guy, going, yeah, we got donuts. You know, you can take it from there. You understand it. It's the same beats of the scene you just saw, only with the actors now interpreting those beats in that genre. And then, of course, Shakespearean style, forsooth, do thine have thy circular fried dough for the sustenance of my pate. You get the idea. And that's the structure of scene improv. You only have to kind of do it for 4 minutes. You play the game, both games, both the description of the theatrical scene and, of course, the game I talked about before, are kind of built in to some degree. So I went to Orlando, started Comedy Sports Orlando. We ran for about 4 years, doing like every comedy sports group ever does. You always start on an off night. We started on a Sunday night at a comedy club, which is great to be at a comedy club, but on a Sunday night, hard to get people in the door. We eventually moved to a really awesome location at a Pizza Hut downtown Orlando on a street called Church Street. Those of you that know Orlando, you go to Disney a lot, you vacation down there. Maybe you live there. Church Street is this sort of 2 or 3, well, it's long street, I guess, but for every evening from 6 o'clock till 2 a.m., the street is blocked off, and it's a pedestrian-only street, kind of like New Orleans, you know, with Bourbon Street. And there's restaurants and nightclubs along it. And when I was there, there was a renaissance in Orlando. Things were really evolving. Things were changing fast in that town, for the better. More restaurants coming in, more tourist stuff coming in, and people would come there. Mostly tourists, mostly tourists, because it was advertised. And if you came to Orlando, you saw a billboard for a place called Church Street Station, which was a huge building from the turn of the century that I guess had something to do with the train station that was right there. Anyway, we were right there. So we were in a primo location. We eventually evolved from doing one show Friday, one show Saturday to 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. We only sat 65 people. It was crowded. But we'd cram them in, and we did okay. Never made a lot of money at it. Never really kept it for very long because eventually the people that owned the Pizza Hut, the company, the large conglomerate, foodco.corp, it's before the internet, so I doubt they'd have a dot in their name, closed that Pizza Hut down. We struggled after that, never really got a really good weekend gig again. And eventually, my partner and I just decided, okay, I think we're going to put less and less effort into this, and eventually we just kind of petered out. That's what I got to say. It kind of petered out. Looking back at those times, had I been a little more skilled as a businessman, a little better with keeping things going, and in town the whole time, because don't forget, I was doing that, and I was hoping to make that my full living eventually, but I was still doing Renaissance fairs to make a living, so I'd be out of town for 6 months of a year, so I'd miss out on a lot of this stuff. I didn't know what was going on. I think the venue closed down, like I said, and I was in Maryland. I wasn't even there for the last show in that great venue. I just got the call, hey man, they're shutting the restaurant down. Bummer. So, what did I do? I stuck around Orlando a little bit longer, got involved in a few other improv opportunities. Eventually moved back to D.C. to direct Comedy Sports Orlando, just to be the artistic director. The owner didn't want to mess with the rehearsals and giving notes and all that, so he gave the job to somebody else, and it was me. And that worked out okay. I was the director when the troupe was not performing for a big chunk because we were moving into our own venue that the owner had partnered up with a restaurant guy to open their own place. And so I became the director at a time when the troupe really wasn't performing, but I still had to run weekly rehearsals. And often I did it in the place where we were moving into, so we were in a construction zone at night, so nobody was there working, but we were there doing the best we can. And it was through Orlando's experience that I learned how to direct improv, which is a little tricky because it's not like it's a play. You have a line, you have a line. You walk over here when you say that, pick up that prop. When you slap him, make sure you slap him and pause for a second. That's how a regular director would do a thing. How do you direct improv? I have no idea. We don't know what's going to happen. All you can do to direct improv is to develop skill sets. And everybody that ever taught improv has their own skill sets they bring to the party. By this point, coming back to D.C. to be the director, I had learned from many wiser people than I in the world of improv. Too many to name here. Dick Chudnow, of course, Brian Capel, my other buddy, who I learned the idea of focus, energy, and commitment. And that's kind of what I kind of ran with. Focus. The idea of being aware of what's going on stage all the time. Even when you're not in a scene, you're supposed to be paying attention. Know what's going on. Use your eyes, use your ears, use your magical sense of knowing what's going on. Because there is a magical sense to it. When improv is really rocking, it's can be magical. So that's focus. Going fast here. I know the coffee's kicking in. Energy. Bringing energy to whatever character you do. And that doesn't mean screaming and talking fast like I'm right now. I mean energy to the intensity of it. I'm picking up this mug and choosing to make the offer of drinking it. I'm putting a lot of energy into it. I've given it its own character in a way, as opposed to saying, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Of course, often didn't have props, and improv had to mime it. This is me pretending I got a cup of coffee energetically. Focus, energy. And commitment, committing to that cup of coffee, setting the cup of coffee back down on the table, committing to the characters. Really, you're the king and I'm the jester? Got it. You're the queen. He's the prince who wants to kill the king. And I know, committing to those characters, not denying them. So focus, energy, and commitment was how I started directing. I would direct people's focus, make sure it stayed there. Energy, commit to to show the energy of the character, and committing to the character or the setting or the character development, the evolution. And that worked pretty darn well. I was able to develop pretty good folks. Now, let me talk very quickly before we wrap things up, because this is going to be a long one already, about once I had that skill set of learning how to teach improv and develop it. Sometimes it gets a little I'll give you guys a little verbal lesson, I guess. A lot of those things I just mentioned to you get a little misunderstood. And I don't teach improv anymore. I would if I were asked, probably somewhere. I think I did a little bit of improv classes at some Ren Fair at some point because some director asked me nicely, and I did a little bit of just giving notes. That was about it. I don't really want to get into that anymore right now. But here's what I've known, and I'll put this out there, and it'll be on video now. The two main things that kind of get misunderstood are don't ask questions and don't say no. Don't deny. And you'll hear that a lot from somebody who's just starting in improv, and you'll hear it a lot at like a Renaissance fair. Ooh, he denied me, or don't say no, or don't ask questions too much. And I think those guidelines of improv are good, and that's why they're often the first two things taught. But they get misunderstood. First of all, don't say no doesn't mean don't say the word no. Let that sink in for a second. It just means don't deny the reality that's created within the scene. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let me talk about the other one first, and then I'll get back to that. And don't ask questions is the other one. Okay, don't say no, don't ask questions. Now that also doesn't mean don't ask a question. At least it shouldn't. Oop, Lucy's getting angry. Lucy, chill out. Oh, it's being taken care of. She'll be fine. It doesn't mean don't ever say anything that is a question. It just means don't come to the stage, don't come to the improv moment not knowing what's going on and having to be caught back up. Who are you guys? What's going on? Where are we? You know, when the first line you say is just needing to have somebody revamp everything that just happened. Okay? Often in early improv environments, Ren Fairs where people are brought up, they're brought in at a young age, they're right out of high school, they had a little bit of theater court classes, and they are, this is their first improv experience. They're focused, they're dead set focused of no question, never say no. And that's fine, but they need to ease down on that a bit. And I'll explain why right now in one very quick improv example. Imagine I'm on stage, and I'm over here, and it was a very common thing to do in the improv world where you did something kind of nebulous with your hands. You weren't really making sure everybody knew exactly. I'm folding laundry, of course, right now. I'm kind of doing the physical, or I'm drinking coffee. I'm typing on the computer. Whatever your physical offer is, it lets the next actor that comes in know that, oh, he's at his computer. He's drinking coffee. He's folding laundry. But if I'm over here just kind of looking in a door, I'm keeping it open. I've chosen to look into a door. I've opened a door and I'm looking into it. That's my offer. It could be anything. I haven't even decided what it is yet. Next actor comes in, and if they open with a question, right? That's rule number 2. Don't do that. But what if the question is, are you eating the birthday cake? See, it's a question. But, and they say it like that, it's wonderfully accusatory. It sets up stakes, which are very important in an improv environment. There has to be a stake, a reason, with a possible good or bad result because of the stake. And if I respond with a quick slamming of the door and clean my lips off and turn around and respond, no, I said no. The first 2 lines of that little mini scene are a question and saying no. I wish a lot of people that taught improv these days, especially in the Renaissance world, would see that example that I just said. Question and no. And yet, we have established all sorts of drama with 2 damn lines, both of which are apparently verboten in the improvisation world. And that's my little offer to people that are starting in improv. Start with those guidelines, but understand what they mean. No questions means don't come in with nothing. The guy coming in with, are you eating the birthday cake? That's not a question of no information. He's upset. The other character's eating the birthday cake. He's maybe been caught before eating the birthday cake. He knew he might be eating the birthday cake and came into the kitchen on him. The other character responds, no, a denial. He said no, clearly cleaning his mouth. He clearly was eating the birthday cake. That character is lying to that character. We're off to the races now. We're going to have a fun scene. It's going to be a great, fun scene. And that's the example I would often give to people on day one of Improv with Brian. 101, welcome to Improv with Brian. Rule number 1, don't ask questions. Rule number 2, don't say no. And now my third example is, I'm going to show you why that's completely wrong. You have to understand what that means. So just to clarify, don't say no means don't deny the reality. If the guy that came in said, are you eating the birthday cake? And I shut the door and said, what birthday cake? As if it doesn't exist. This guy just established there's birthday cake in here somewhere, and I was looking into a door. Could have been interpreted as a refrigerator where you might store a cake, and I denied it. Go, what are you talking about? I don't know what birthday cake you're talking about. That's denial. That's saying no. Me going no, that is not a denial. That's accepting the offer brilliantly and making it even higher, elevating the stakes. Don't ask questions. The next one. It just means don't come in not knowing what's going on in the scene and needed to be recapped. What are you guys doing? What's going on? Where are we going? Who are you again? Don't do that. It just slows things down. However, are you eating the last of the birthday cake? Is an accusation. It is a wonderful line. It is a question. So everything's in levels. Improv is in level. You got to start here, you work to the next level. I always refer to it as kindergarten level, elementary school level, high school, and college level. That little example I just gave of taking the 2 basic rules that an elementary school level improv actor would obsess over and showing how when it's brought to the college level is actually a wonderful thing. But I'm not the first person to ever say this to you. You've heard it a million times. You got to learn the rules before you break the rules. So, where were we? I'm going to wrap up. I was at Comedy Sports. I was the director for a while. Then I stopped being the director, and I started a little extra kind of curricular improv group called Emmett's Boys, which were my favorite friends and actors within the troupe that I wanted to work with, because the Comedy Sports troupe would often, you'd have to kind of put the schedule together. Okay, you'd make the teams up every night. I was the director for a while, so I would make the teams up, a week in advance. And you'd have to kind of spread the talent out. You got some heavy hitters, you got people that are weaker, but you kind of have to balance it. Make the heavy hitters be with the weaker ones and have a good show. Which meant that the heavy hitters, of which I was one, couldn't always perform together. That's just the honest reality of that level of theater and entertainment. It varies with troupe, it varies with your improv group. And I wanted to have a group that I could trust every single person in it to hold their own weight. And so we started a thing called Emmett's Boys. And that was a lot of fun. We did a little longer form. It wasn't competitive. There were 5 or 6 of us. And there might be a picture somewhere here on the wall. If not, I'll try to dig one up for you guys. I'm still very good friends with all those guys. They're all very, very talented. And the shows we did were a lot of fun. One of my favorite things we ended up doing was Shakespeare. Really long ones, like 25-minute Shakespeare plays. Moved out to L.A., sat in with the theater sports troupe a few times, got involved with a Shakespearean improv troupe that performed at Improv Olympic on Hollywood Boulevard. That was fun. Did that for about 10 months to a year. I can't remember how long we were doing that. And that was the last stage improv I really ever did. What I do with my solo show and like when I perform with other people, like Mooney and Brune, I'm riffing, I'm going off the cuff, I'm pretty good at it. I wouldn't call it improvisation in the truest sense of the word. My show is scripted. Let's not deny it. It is. I go from beat to beat, but I'll riff off if new information comes in. I don't know if that's really improvisation, but certainly my improvisational background, of which I just gave you most of the bullet points for it, has really helped. I no longer am afraid of not having a script. I never really was. In fact, if you want to know what really makes me nervous is having a script. For a couple of years, the last time I had to deal with a script was when I was sitting in with my buddy Spencer Hum, who was part of Emmett's Boys. He used to do this Christmas special in Baltimore for charity. And and it was themed different every time. And I did it one time, and it was themed like A Christmas Carol, and I was one of the ghosts. I was the ghost of Christmas Present, and I had to do a few lines, and I had to sing a song. Both things scared the hell out of me, to get the lines right and to sing the song. But then I went into every actor that was there was a variety guy like me, and then you did your part for the story, and then you would slowly transition to what you did, and I would transition to a little segment, and I did, a little chunk of my show, and then I'm back to the comfort zone. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. Don't forget to go to the site and vote. I already told you guys how the voting is going. Tomorrow night, we're going to do live bad advice over on Facebook, because I still can't do it here yet because I don't have enough followers over on YouTube, but I kind of don't want to worry about that right now. It's fine doing it over there, and this will be where we'll get a little deeper, a little introspective. Excuse me. It was him. So tune into that. We're going to start it at 5 o'clock, just like all my streams start. The premise is simple. You guys can ask me questions. Go on over to the event thing, the little Facebook event notification. You post right on the wall there, and I should see the post if you want to get your advice questions in early. Please remember that advice is not either or. A lot of people ask advice of me. Should I have cake or pie? That's not advice. Advice is, I'm thinking of building a bakery. What should I do? That's advice. I'm thinking of asking this guy out or this girl out. What should I do? We're going to see how it goes. I'm going to glean a little bit of the information from the internet, from rather you guys writing those to me. We'll also take some on the live feed, the actual conversation as it goes across the screen. I'll try to catch it, and we'll see where it goes. We're going to have fun with it. It's just going to be basically like this, only live, and I'll be working on the live advice. Wednesday night, of course, is still beer and songs. Last week's show was a lot of fun. As I know a lot of you know, we had guest artists come to the show, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know what we're going to do this week, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you all so much, and welcome again to the new Patreons. Thank you for your support. I love you all very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon. Bye, everybody.